This is the Embodied Performance Podcast, episode 25. I'm Nick Markey, Beach Barbell, Physical Therapy and Performance and Strength Training in Wilmington, North Carolina. Check out beachbarbell.com for our Founders Club for the opening of our new gym very soon. So this week we've been talking about strength training, focusing on different thoughts and practical ideas around it. I think I'll finish off today by going even more practical, back to what I usually get as a question, as, how many should I do? So the answer ultimately is it depends. But if, say, it's from a physical therapy point of view, what I'll usually do is just start with a few if it's the first session. So maybe 5. I purposely try to make it a little easier to get the ball rolling. They could probably do more and push it, but instead of trying to potentially risk flaring up whatever condition they've come and see me for, as we've talked about before, I like to get the positive, easy wins in early. And then over a few sessions, you're going to kind of see how it's the area is reacting, and then you could start to push a little bit more. But generally what I'll do is, if it's just one simple exercise, I'll probably say, this is from physical therapy point of view, in the first session, maybe do it 1 to 3 times a day, 5 to 10 times. That way it gives them a range. So if they're having a day that's a little rougher, maybe they just do it once that day. If they're having a day where they're feeling better, maybe they do it 2 or 3 times. And then the rep range, they get some choice in the matter. Now, there may be something with that with the control aspect. The fact that they get to choose how many they do could also be a helpful part. And I think that also goes into just regular training. As a patient is progressing, I'll go more into normal strength training parameters, and we'll get into that next. So for strength training, when someone asks, how many should I do? For most people, just your everyday regular person, I would generally give them a range, somewhere between maybe 6 and 12, maybe 15. The reason why I like to give the range is, again, that control aspect, give them some wiggle room in terms of how they're feeling that day. And also, the research suggests that for strength and muscle growth together, it's good to have kind of different challenges. So having something maybe a little heavier and doing less reps, maybe towards that 6 rep range, and then having something that's a little bit lighter, towards the top end of that range, 12, 15-ish, and then having something in the middle, 8 to 10, 12 range. So typically if someone's doing, maybe we talked about frequency, let's say they're doing it 3 times a week, they probably could choose slightly different rep ranges each day. Sometimes that might be like, this is my heavy day, and then this is my medium day, this is my light day. If you want to get even more granular, you can have that within, the certain muscle groups. So like, okay, I'm going to do push light today. I'm going to do legs heavy today, and then I'm going to do, pull medium today. And then you just switch it to a different one next time. That kind of programming may target slightly different muscle fibers, but also I think it probably just keeps things fresh for people. So you get a different feel, even though the exercise could be, say that you did bench press 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If I did different rep ranges and weights each time, I'm going to get a different feel from that. So maybe from a training standpoint, that keeps me from accommodating or getting used to the weight and then having less effect on me. But also maybe that just keeps me more interested and consistent, because ultimately it's about what can we do to drive consistency. And so with that, there might be certain rep ranges that some people like more. Some people might like the lower rep ranges, some people like the middle, some people like the higher. You might, if that is the case for that person, you might just let them, focus on that rep range. So if someone likes more, like they like the weight that they do around 12 of it, the weight, then that might be where you keep it for the most part. And then every so often you go down to the different rep ranges. Now, when you start to get beyond those, like starting to get 20s, 30s, 40 rep ranges, you're starting to work a little bit more on endurance. So if the person's goal is just general strength and muscle growth, then probably wouldn't worry about going too much into those rep ranges. Maybe every so often trying something in the 20 to 30s. You tend to get more of like a burning feel on that. So it is a challenge. But I wouldn't necessarily do all the reps around there. Maybe just every so often you challenge that. And then there's, of course, below that 6 mark. And again, these numbers are somewhat arbitrarily cutoffs, but more of a practical range, I would say. But say that we're talking 2 reps, 3 reps, 4 reps. 5 is close enough to 6. So you could probably say 5 or 6. So let's just say like 2, 3, or 4s. So you're starting to look at heavier weight. Again, for more just towards the muscle growth hypertrophy, you could do that with those weights. You just end up having to take more rest and probably have way more sets. So if you're just looking at a time efficiency standpoint, because most people that are trying to work out are probably not looking to spend hours in the gym, maybe 30, 45 minutes, an hour at the most. If you get too heavy, you do need more breaks to be able to handle that. So it just may not be more optimal. Now, that is a way to also build strength too. So I don't think it should be avoided. But again, if we're talking about maybe trying different ones every so often, so maybe every so often you throw in a heavier weight, or like we talked about, maybe that much lighter weight where you're doing 20 or 30 or 40. So just the practical for the person who's just trying to get some muscle growth and some strength, keeping it in that maybe 5, 6 to 12 or 15 rep range, and then testing out different weights in those different rep ranges, for the most part, maybe 75% of your lifting, and then, the 25% challenging, maybe in those higher 20 to 30, maybe 40 rep ranges, and then also those heavier ones below, the 2s and 3s, maybe even 1. Checking those out every so often too could be a good stimulus or challenge to keep it fresh. But ultimately, you who's choosing to lift for very, very good reasons, it's a great thing to do. As we talked about earlier this week, the benefits of it. You need to figure out what will keep you consistent. So maybe you hit weights for months on end and then you get kind of overweights, and so you start working more bands, or maybe you go into more body weight for a little while, then you go back to weights, whatever gets you up and gets you working out and doing the resistance training is what matters, number one. So, as long as it's safe and it keeps you consistent, that's what matters. I think too many people focus too hard on optimizing everything when, optimizing like the sets and the reps and the weights and all that stuff. And for the person who's already consistent, that's probably fine. But if you're just having a hard time just showing up, that's what you need to optimize. And so, like we talked about before, behavior change, linking it to, positive things. Like if you really love coffee, then, you link going to the gym with drinking your coffee. So like every time I have my coffee, I go to the gym, or maybe you have the coffee is your reward for going to the gym. So you link it to a positive thing, or, that identity change where you say, what would a healthy person do? Would he stay at home and do nothing, or would he go to the gym and work out? A healthy person would go work out. Just looking at ways to make yourself as consistent as possible and thinking about the long term. Now, that doesn't mean you don't challenge yourself in there. It's important that you challenge yourself. And we talked about progressive overloader this week, that you slowly, over time, add a little bit more challenge, whatever that may be. But you got to do it. So if doing it, you have to go in and make it easy for a few months, you're better off doing that. If you don't feel like, I don't really want to challenge myself too much, you're better off going and doing something than doing nothing. And then once you start to develop that consistency, then, hey, let's throw in those challenges. So how many should I do practically for just trying to be efficient and get your workout done? I would say that 5 to 12, 15 rep range, and trying different weights and reps with that. But certainly trying the higher and the lower stuff every so often to get a little bit new challenge in there. So I think that'll cap off our week, our strength training week. And next week on Monday, we'll be back to it with a new topic, whatever floats into my head. And I think that it might be helpful for somebody, obviously. So I hope you have a great weekend. Again, this is Nick Markey, Beach Barbell Physical Therapy, Performance and Strength Training. Check out beachbarbell.com. Founders Club, Charity Drive, new gym coming very soon. Thank you. Bye.